Former Disney cast members of Reddit, what are some of your craziest/creepiest/best stories? Not so much behind the scenes stuff, but one of my favorite stories. I worked at Epcot for 8 years, and this happened sometime in the early 90s. There was a couple from somewhere in the Midwest that had driven to Miami to adopt a disabled child, their ninth. On the way home they decided to stop at Disney World for the kids. After pulling into the Epcot parking lot, their handy van caught fire. They got all the kids out, but the van was a total loss. Disney put them all up in one of their hotels while the couple tried to figure out what to do next. Turns was a convention of Rotary International at the Swan Hotel. One of the members saw the story on the news, and at breakfast the next morning, passed the hat among the members. They ended up collecting enough to buy the couple a brand new van, extra equipment for all the kids, and a hefty check left over. I have always held a certain amount of pride in the Rotary Club for this amazing generosity. Part creepy but mostly crazy story here. We had a rich guest come in to Club 33 super secret yet not so secret restaurant in New Orleans Square for the first time, I believe, and he wanted a private room and some Disney princesses to have fun with, and wondered if any of the hostesses or waitresses were interested when we told him we could not accommodate him. Not that I condone it, but as far as high-ticket whoring goes, I'd bet you could make some ridiculous amounts as a Disney princess who peeps for money. Well, cosplay porn is a thing. There weren't many of the creepy internet rumor type stories for me. I feel like a lot of those come from people who like the idea of a corrupted Disneyland. I will say though, some of the areas were really unsettling when they were empty and dark. Toontown was one, especially since it always closes early. The twisted proportions are cartoony during the day, but when you're alone at night, it just feels like you might see a mascot running at you out of the dark. And I couldn't imagine if the music started all of a sudden. Most of that happy, cheerful crap is downright terrifying alone and at night. Lol. Hell, I'd rather hear the Jaws music that late at night. Knock knock. Who's there? Land shark. I used to work at the box office. I once had a woman come up and ask for a ticket into Disneyland. She then placed a box on the counter while looking for her wallet. IDK how she managed to get that box past security. I see a picture on it, and then I see dates. I realize that they are the ashes of assuming her little girl. I had to keep her at my window while I waited for security. It broke my heart, but a lot of people like to dump ashes on rides and it literally just gets vacuumed up at the end of the night. I almost feel like it would be nice if Disney made a designated place in their parks where parents could spread the ashes of their children to honor them, since so many kids love the parks. Someplace they wouldn't be swept/vacuumed up and could actually be either spread or buried in peace. This is such a sweet idea. Sadly, I feel like it would be against Disney's brand to have somewhere like this. Maybe you could Disney for it. Forvaland. A special place not on any map that's just for our friends who never grew up. Put it by the Peter Pan ride and call it Neverland. Not creepy in the traditional sense, just personally scary. I worked night shift at DAC and was working out on the safari at like 3 AM. As I was struggling to get something working near the Hippo River, I heard one of the hippos do their crazy loud noise out of the pitch blackness like 5 feet away from me. I then had the terrifying realization that if I fell in, I would most likely be killed within a minute and wouldn't be discovered until the morning when they would find my truck on the right path. I was much more careful in that area after that thought. Hippos will peep you up. Those moth earth peepers are masters of disguise. They don't even have to try. I went on a safari in Tanzania about 10 years ago, and at some point we stopped the car and got out to walk around. I remember thinking, "Ooh, there are lots of stones in the river. I could walk to the other side." The guide stopped me as I was walking over there, to my horror, that they were all hippos. 50 to 100 of them. They look exactly like smooth stepping stones when they are just hanging out underwater. It's crazy. I was staring at the view for a long time and those stones didn't budge. I can definitely see how someone could get eaten just walking over there and hopping onto one of the stones. You can't be the only one to try it. That guide probably thinks tourists are somehow compelled to commit suicide by hippo. You think the guides sometimes are like AFPM. Let's see what happens. This is Kevin 5 this week. This was a while ago now, but it still makes me smiley and nostalgic. Character performers, such as myself, are only out during specific time slots during the day for pictures. When those times end, usually guests aren't allowed to enter the queue anymore, and we finish up taking photos with those remaining. Unfortunately, this day was particularly hot and fur characters had been experiencing issues, i.e. fainting due to the heat, so they were packing us up rather quickly at the end of shifts. Dale and I, Chip, were waving our goodbyes to the guests when we heard this child absolutely wailing her lungs out over not being able to meet us. She wasn't being bratty. She sounded genuinely upset. My attendant is the best. The crowd dispersed a bit, and she was able to catch up with the parents. She found out they would be returning tomorrow, and since we all had shifts the following day, we pulled some strings to set up a small meeting. Here's how it went down. The parents, as instructed, brought her to Critter Country a while before the first meet and greet of the day. I crept up behind her and gently put my paws over her eyes and pulled them back to reveal Dale striking this wonderfully heroic pose in front of her. I still remember how she screamed in excitement when she realized her favorite Disney characters had come out just to spend some time her. We gave her autographs and did photos, then spent the rest of the time playing tag. Out of curiosity, how do autographs work there? Are you all trained to have the same autograph depending on your costume? Yes, each character has their own handwriting that performers need to know. Fur characters are asked to learn all of the autographs for the characters within their height range, since they could portray any of them. It's an especially good practice for Chip/Dale performers, because it's common for Chip/Dale to sign the autograph of the other chipmunk by mistake. I was working with a fellow performer who signed as Chip one day, while portraying Dale. Luckily, I caught it, and wrote Dale lol. Face characters only need to know the autograph of the character they're performing. One of my friends is also a fur character at Disneyland. A couple years ago I was so stoked about trying to find Elsa and Anna, but the lines were always too long. Later on she grabbed a pen and paper and did at least 15 different characters' autographs for me, including Elsa and Anna. It was really sweet, and I still have it. Not all heroes wear capes. Some wear Disney character costumes. I worked at one of the restaurants in MK. I had a family abandon their adult son, who was in a wheelchair with a slew of health complications, in the middle of our walkway while they went on rides. He was there for about 2 to 3 hours. Man, this one just makes me mad. Half because I know Disney makes accommodations for disabled people to go on rides, and half because he's stuck with a family of assholes who abandoned him to go dick around on rides. I'm surprised no one has mentioned Towel Baby. Most people who worked at WDWMK in the early 2000s heard of or met Towel Baby. It's a rather sad story, so I'll try to tell it respectfully. Several times a week a couple with annual passes came to the Magic Kingdom with what appeared to be a swaddled infant. However, if you looked closely, the woman was carrying a rolled up towel wrapped in a hospital newborn blanket. The man was always very gentle, leading his wife through security and into the park. I'm not certain if they went on rides, but I know for sure that they always asked for a table for 3 at restaurants. They came through my turnstile a few times, and while the woman rarely made eye contact, they were always soft-spoken and respectful. The story/legend was that the couple had lost an infant years prior and the woman fell into a deep depression and became delusional. The only thing that kept her somewhat functional was fussing over this towel and coming to the Magic Kingdom. Observing them navigate the park was a masterclass in compassion, not only watching the husband care for his wife, but seeing every single cast member treat them both with respect and kindness. I remember managers telling us not to make fun of them obviously, but also not to fuss over them. They're just another family enjoying the park. That is so sad. Former Walt Disney World merchandise cast member here. Was on the Disney College program last fall. I worked primarily in the Star Tours gift shop Tatooine Traders. This is one of my best stories. We had several autographed pictures behind the counter. Luke, Han, Leia and Chewie was 10,000. I was on the register near the pictures when this older gentleman asked me how much the centerpiece was. I told him $10,000, sir. He looked at me and said that would look great in my theater room. How many do you have in stock? I said to including the one on display. He said perfect, I'll take both. The total after taxes was a bit over 20,000. I was a bit flustered swiping that credit card. I know there are some rich people out there but never really got to see it firsthand. My favorite part is that as I offered to ship it home for him, he says no thanks. I brought my plane with me. I worked at Hollywood studios for more than a year while I went to UCF. The dumbest story I have is about a woman who exited the ride where I worked and discovered wet stuff coming from the sky. I was standing near stroller parking helping people organize strollers. The woman came up to me and told me that she didn't like the wet stuff coming from the sky and that I should tell my boss to turn it off. At first, I laughed because I thought she was kidding, which only pissed her off more. Don't they know that this stuff ruins people's vacations? She said. We have no way of controlling the rain, ma'am. This is Florida and we get quick storms like this in the summer. But it might go away after a while. I said. What about the bubble? She said. I was thoroughly confused by what she meant by bubble, so I had to ask that she was saying bubble. Apparently she thought that all of Disney was under a big bubble and we controlled the weather, like Rissa on Star Trek. I confirmed that there was no bubble, that this was the real deal. She walked away insisting that something should be done about it. But that's just one of the many stupid things that happened during my time as a centimeters. It was just one of the dumbest conversations I had. How did this woman make it to adulthood? Probably in a bubble. I worked at a restaurant in downtown Disney in California as a host. James Spader came in once, tried to get a table with his dog, who was obviously not a service dog, and even if it was an emotional support dog, they don't have to be legally allowed inside a restaurant. I told him I would be happy to seat him if he left his dog at the kennel, right across the esplanade. But I could not seat his dog inside. What if a health inspector came in? He yelled at me so much. His face turned red. He told my manager to fire me. Luckily, the restaurant had a patio, and the manager sat Spader at a table on the patio closest to the exit, so we wouldn't get in trouble. My manager actually stood up for me, told Spader I was right. Spader still tried to get me fired. This was 10 years ago. I still hate James Spader with a red hot passion. Such an entitled ass. And since he always plays assholes, I know he's not even a good actor. However, Christian Slater was very polite when he came in. He's just a hallucination anyway. Creepiest. Got deployed, they needed people, so they moved me there to Animal Kingdom for a week. I was at the Dinosaur Riders merchandise and was leaving at night when everything was stocked and clean. Forgot where I was for a second when I heard screeching noises. They still haven't turned off the dinosaur noises and it was pitch black outside. Craziest. Worked at Club Cool at Epcot. Had a Brazilian father pull down his daughter pants and let her pee on our floor. Another Club Cool one. People would try Beverly Italy's soda, and instead of puking in the trash, they would puke on the soda machine and we would have to shut it down and clean it. Got asked about putting the dome up when it was raining. When working at the Mission Space gift shop, I had a 3-hour standoff with a guest who was stealing vinyl millions from us. My last official day working at Animal Kingdom before getting transferred to the Grand Floridian Resort was the opening day of Pandora at Animal Kingdom. I worked 17 hours that day. The wait time to get into Pandora from the Discovery Island bridge was 5 hours and another 5 hours wait time to ride the Banshee ride. Lots and lots of drunk people when I worked at Epcot. I really don't understand how people genuinely think that Disney is under a dome. Like, you're literally outside driving to the park, parking in the parking lots, and walking/riding the tram into the park. You would see a peeping dome if there was one. There is a saying that refers to the Disney bubble, but it's referring to the idea that when you're there, you forget about the outside world. Everything is supposed to be perfect and immersive, etc. People probably hear that phrase and think it's a literal bubble. Whenever a Disney story thread comes up, this one from you/I have been a third entity is always the best. I have one moment that stands out above all the rest. I was waiting for someone to ask me this question. It's the reason I left a good job as a VIP tour guide and moved to the character department. I was working City Hall one day when two guests came in with two little girls. One was in a wheelchair and the other one looked like she had just seen death. Both were cut and bruised, and the one in the wheelchair had her arm in a cast. The two women were actually nurses from a hospital and were asking for a refund on the girls' tickets, something we avoided doing at all costs. When I asked why, they told me the story. The two girls were with their mom and dad at Epcot, and on the way home they got into a horrible car accident. The mother was beheaded right in front of them. The father eventually died too, but the two girls didn't know that yet. They were from overseas and had no money and no contact information for anyone they knew. They were bringing the tickets back to get the girls some much needed money to help get them back home. My heart absolutely sunk. If you had seen these girls, you'd know why. They were truly traumatized. I refunded their tickets and got permission to be their private tour guide for the rest of the day, which they were not expecting. I walked them to the VIP viewing area for the parade, which was as far as I could walk them in the costume we used to wear at City Hall. I had to leave them there while I put on my VIP costume. On the way down I pulled out every kid joke I could think of. I was a really good tour guide. I helped write part of it, and I knew how to make kids smile. Nothing worked. These girls were too far gone for that. I left them at the bridge to go change, walked backstage and bawled my eyes out. I just had never seen something so horrible. I was truly affected, and it was a terrible feeling of powerlessness not being able to fix the situation. When I came back I brought them to get ice cream, take them on rides and stuff, but they never smiled. Not once. The nurses were loving it and were trying to get them into it, but it just wasn't working. We went back to the bridge to watch the parade. It was there that I honestly saw true magic. Real magic. Not bullspeep. I had called the parade department to let them know what was going on and set up a private meet and greet after the parade. As the parade was coming around Liberty Square, I told the girls that I had called Mickey and told him all about them. I told them that Mickey asked to meet them after the parade. The little girl in the wheelchair smiled. "Really?" she asked. My heart skipped. "Yes, really. He told me to tell you to look out for him in the parade and to follow the float back to City Hall." The other girl smiled. "You mean right now?" she asked. It had worked. They were talking. Not laughing, but talking. It was the first time I had heard them speak. Every single parade performer came up to them on the bridge and told them to look out for Mickey. Every one of them told them that. When Mickey's float came up, Mickey, who was attached to a pole at the top of the float, managed to turn her body sideways, look down at the girls and point towards Main Street. That was all it took. The girls were excited now. They had forgotten about death. They were lost in a magical world, and I couldn't believe I was watching it unfold in front of my eyes. We followed that float all the way back to City Hall, singing Mickey Mania the whole way. Back then, City Hall used to have a VIP lounge behind the desk that was for privacy during difficult situations or to host celebrities. I took them in and showed them the book where all of the autographs were. They were eating it up. The girl who was Mickey that day got down off her float and, without even taking her head off, walked up to me backstage and said, "Let's go." I walked in with Mickey behind me, so I got to see the exact moment the girls met their new friend. They got shy, but Mickey was in control now. Those girls met the real Mickey Mouse that day. Every single parade character stayed dressed to meet those girls. One by one they'd come in and play a bit then leave. We were in that lounge for over an hour. Mickey stayed in costume the entire time, which is hard to do after a parade. When Mickey finally said goodbye, I had two excited girls on my hands that couldn't stop smiling. They talked and talked and talked. We had a wonderful day after that, but what I remember most is when we walked by the rose garden. The older one said, "Oh, my mommy loves roses. I mean." And she stopped. I held out my hand and walked her to the gate, picked her up and put her on the other side and said, "Pick one." She looked happy as she picked out her favorite rose. She didn't say anything more, and she didn't need to. I said goodbye to the wonderful nurses and the wonderful girls, then walked backstage behind the train station. This time I didn't cry. It felt so good to be a part of that. I realized that as much as I liked helping guests at City Hall, the true magic of Disney was in the character department. I auditioned, transferred, and never looked back. Thanks for letting me relive this. It was a special day for me. Damn it, my eyes are getting wet again. Where's that bubble? At Disney right now. Jungle Cruise ride malfunctioned and elephants started spraying everyone like it was a fire hose. That was pretty funny. Oh. As I understand, there's an adult version of that ride when no kids are on the boat. What are some of the mature tours like? More like that tour is the cast member special. Get enough of your centimeter friends and you get the adult tour. It can get raunchy. Former photographer at Disney World and worked very closely with the characters. There were some creepy regulars. There were this couple who'd pretty much come in every day and would get super mushy with the cast members, like a first name basis kind of thing, and they would make sure to catch specific performers during their set. No one knows how they know this info. We think they just stalk them. Some CMs think it's harmless, but I think it's incredibly odd. They even expect some special treatment because they are regulars. I've only encountered them a couple of times, but they managed to find me on Facebook just based off my name tag info. I remember a specific Peter Pan that, because he was cute, had a Tumblr page dedicated to him. He was in a real life relationship with the girl that played Wendy. These people found out about it. Found out they were engaged. Somehow got photos of their wedding, if I remember correctly. Creeped me out. Undefined. Oh, I remember this guy. I was subscribed to his skit YouTube channel and eventually found out about the obsession on Tumblr about him. It was very weird, but at least it sounded like he got a good following out it to become successful in his other career aspirations. I knew a woman who played a female character from an animated film. She and presumably many other such actresses have to fend off countless come-ons from adult males, often with their kids and even wives nearby, without breaking character. There are security guards watching such actresses, discreetly, but they are not far. And they will have a chat with the most persistent. How could they possibly tell people to back off in character? Poor girls. Of course I don't work there, but my aunt and uncle do. Uncle told us that among the bitter employees, Mickey is referred to as the rat. My favorite tidbit is that, because nothing bad is supposed to happen in Disney, there's weird euphemisms for a lot of things. If there needs to be a puke cleanup at one of the rides, it's called in as a protein spill. Protein spill is correct radio talk for puke. Worked as a housekeeper or master of the custodial arts. You're a master of your craft and vital to society. While you were partying, he studied the mop. While you were having premarital sex, he mastered the broom. Former employee, but not of the parks themselves. We were given a tour backstage at Disneyland and I have an image burned into my mind that has never escaped me. It was of a clothing rack, one on wheels, placed back behind the Tower of Terror. On it, placed on hooks, were about 10 Mickey Mouse heads that must have been either drying after a wash or moving to a new location. The blood orange sunset, combined with the tower and what appeared to be decapitated Mickey heads hanging from hooks, is a fond, creepy memory. Blinks. All of the heads are gone now. Cue creepypasta music. Not that great a story, but I pet a Disneyland cat. This is a great story. Well done. I was a centimeters from 2007 to 2014. It was said that there is a ghost of a little girl at Soarin' on B-side. They say she died in the parking lot before DCA was built, but no one can say exactly how. Some have claimed to hear footsteps coming up the metal stairs that lead below the screen during a flight. But the tower centimeters is the only one there, since the room is closed off during a flight and an open door would stop it immediately. So imagine sitting there, basically tuning out the show you've heard so many times, and start hearing metallic footsteps. It's dark. You feel like you're being watched. Very uneasy feeling. I quickly read Disneyland's incident history, and a 7-year-old girl was run over and killed by a charter bus in the parking lot in the mid-80s. Could be her. DCA was built on the old parking lot, if anyone doesn't know. Someone told me that story, but said it was where Tower of Terror is. One time, we saw a little girl in line at 2T, then in the blink of an eye she was gone. Then showed up in the picture that was taken in our elevator. She didn't get on the elevator with us. Former rap. Worked in DTD for a while. Show us the damn picture, man. I got 2 different people banned for life from in the same store in a 1 month. Was trying to return stolen merchandise for credit. The other was stealing pins. The dumbest stealing pins actually used their credit card to purchase something else, and my investigative skills came into work. Found all of the receipts from the time of the theft, looked them up on Facebook, and found the girl. More people in their party came in later to steal more, and the guy involved this time was wearing the exact shirt from his FB pic. I alerted our management, who alerted security. Guests ended up being charged to their rooms for the pins that were stolen, and asked to never return to WDW property. Other story is during my time at the front desk there was this woman who was wreaking havoc all over property. Her magic file think Disney permanent record was as mile long, and traversed parks and resorts. Some of the stories were bonkers. This woman left her service dog in her room all day while they were at the park. She complained that she was allergic to onions after ordering French onion soup, and let her dog relieve itself in the lobby of Wilderness Lodge and say that it wasn't her mess to clean up. Yeah. After so long, security finally came to her room and informed her that she was no longer allowed on property. She is banned for life. Seeing the characters sat on the lunch table in the tunnels of Magic Kingdom, with their heads off. Knowing that the Tinkerbell that flies out of the castle in a steel cable is a short Korean man. The face characters, people whose face you can see, especially the princesses, are the most arrogant people I have ever met ever. This one time, guests pulled me over into the woman's bathroom because some crazy bitch was hitting her peeping kid inside the stall and the kid was wailing. And they wanted me to intervene cause the woman was Hispanic. I don't speak Spanish. Security was called. It was peeped. No idea what happened to the kid. To be honest, I have much more good stories than bad stories. The place I worked in was actually super speepty with speepty managers. But Disney is a nice place to work. They actually do give a speep about their guests. It's not just a front. And I like that. Knowing that the Tinkerbell that flies out of the castle in a steel cable is a short Korean man. Ahahahahaha. That is great. Why am I imagine in a Tinkerbell costume? Open pixie style. Don't want to out who I am, but I used to work as a host at a restaurant on Main Street at DL. I have so many stories. One woman came up and asked where the bathrooms were, so I told her. She then decided that the line was too long, so she tried to just pull down her pants and pee in the lobby. Security came very quickly. A lot of people try and spread their loved ones' ashes at DL. It's very popular in the rivers of America. I've never seen it, but apparently security stops someone once a week. Not a worker, but my husband and I had passes there and would go by weekly. We saw 2 grown men fight over the last seat of a tram. One was with his family and the other was alone. It was midnight. Everyone was tired, and there were a lot of people. But trams come every 5 minutes, so no biggie. But the man who was alone was not going to wait 5 minutes and rip the father out of his seat so he can get to go. Q what my dear, and I called the tram fight. The father tried to fight the man to get back with his family. But the other guy was not having it. A cast member and security guard had to push the man off the father. They helped the father back on with his family and told the man to walk back to the parking lot. The walk back to the parking lot means walking around the tram pickup, halfway through downtown Disney, outside of the park, and back to the parking lot. Takes about 10 minutes. We'd done it millions of times. But it feels like an hour if it is midnight and you've been walking since 8 AM. But you can spot Disney collection of stray cats that keep the rodent population down. They are only seen at early or late hours. So the man had to walk back to the parking lot, and it was great. I actually did see a rat once at Epcot about 5 years ago. It was in the bushes by the Finding Nemo gift shop exit. And no, it wasn't Mickey. I seen a rat myself in Space Mountain Arcade Place. I have also seen a duck rape another duck by American River. I used to work in the stores and there was this one guy who came in and sat with a little girl who was left alone in the theater by her nanny and started asking her weird questions like who she's with and how old she is. It wasn't until my fellow cast member, also a guy, noticed and approached them that the guy stood up and left immediately. We also had another incident where a guest complained to one of my stage leads that there was a man going around and asking children how old they were. Turns out he didn't know the size of his own kid's feet, and he was trying to find another kid who is the same age to figure it out. My stage lead pretty much yelled at the guy, lol,